Welcome to Build a Drone Reviewer Podcast, episode 27, Rotor Talk Live. Very special guest, Originaldobo. Got that coming up next. Last night, Marcus Crawford and I were rejoined by co-host Ron Brown, and we had very special guest Ken Dono, otherwise known as Originaldobo, in the house last night. We had an incredible hour talking with Ken, finding out about what's going on with his channel, finding out about what's going on with his business, find out what he and Billy have been up to lately. So you don't want to miss this. Kick back, relax, and enjoy this full episode from Rotor Talk Live. Good evening. Welcome to Rotor Talk Live, Season 2, Episode 37. We have very special guest tonight, Originaldobo. Ken is in the house. Billy had some things to take care of. Billy's going to be our very special guest next week. Ken, how are you this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you guys all doing?
We're doing fantastic. We are also joined tonight by Mr. Ron Brown. Ron Brown, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be back.
How was the trip back from California?
Well, it was a bumpy ride, but we made it.
And of course, Marcus Crawford is in the house tonight. Marcus, how are you this evening?
Good evening, everybody. Good.
All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about. One of the things that I wanted to ask Ken right off the bat, and we'll get into greeting people here in a little bit. Ken, I have just absolutely loved what you're doing on Friday night with your Friday night flights. Can you tell us about that?
So yeah, it's basically where anyone can submit footage from wherever they flew. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter whether you have a YouTube channel or whatever. I've shortened it down to 30 seconds and I basically put together like one large montage. And then I have, like a splash screen going with everybody's name of the flight, what they flew, where they flew. If they have a YouTube channel, that's in the splash screen as well. And then also in the description, I have everybody's, social media tags, wherever they want people to sort of follow them for, their flights or their take or perspectives, that's there. So I've gotten a lot of submissions this week. I've probably over 55 submissions this week.
Wow.
I haven't even gotten a chance to download all the footage. And at this point, I'm just sort of doing it randomly because there's just so many emails to go through and sift through.
That's tremendous. That really is. Ron, Marcus, have you guys had a chance to watch Ken's special Friday night flights where videos are submitted by other users? You guys have a chance to see that?
I have not. I saw a Friday night show he did like before he started the Friday night videos, but I haven't got a chance to tune into the Friday night shows yet.
Yeah, you guys need to watch those. That's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that was a great idea. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about tonight with Ken, and I know this has just come up recently, is there was another video out on Skydio. And apparently from what we saw, there was a gentleman that had a remote controller, and this was Hey Kestelou had that on the other day. What are your thoughts on that, Ken? Do you think Skydio is going to be a viable option for people?
I mean, if they are, they're definitely going to have to come down in price because their last unit that they shipped was $2,800.
Yeah,
and there was no physical controller. It followed you. It had a very GoPro-like camera. Not that that's a bad thing. Some people like that, but it was really expensive for what it was, and it was sort of a niche. Like you got to have to want something to follow you, I guess. But it's definitely got to come way down in price if it wants to compete.
Ron and Marcus, what do you guys think?
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with just absolutely everything Ken just said. The price point has got to be, if it's a full function, full featured drone, 4K 60 frames, etc., maybe a little obstacle avoidance, so forth. It's got to be, between that $1,000 and probably $1,500 mark to be viable. And there's absolutely no question it's got to have a controller.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I guess what I would say is I would love to see a top quality competitor to DJI. So I wish them the best.
I second what Marcus and Ken said. At $2,800, nobody's buying a consumer drone for $2,800, so they've got to be, you know, in the same ballpark the Mavic 2 Pro is. And you know, you talked about the video. I mean, where you see the reflection of the man holding the control. There was an earlier video for the Skydio where you see the shadow of it, and it no longer had an enclosed, you know, ring around it. It had just the standard open propeller look to it. So their question, are these leaks really leaks, or are they on purpose leaks by Skydio to get extra attention? But I mean, we know they have the obstacle avoidance technology. More than a year ago, they had the best obstacle avoidance technology we've seen in a consumer drone. And obviously they had the battery life, and like, you know, Ken said, the camera's more of a GoPro style or whatever, but that's probably an easy fix too. So I definitely think that there's a place in the marketplace, you know, for a DJI a Mavic 2 Pro or Zoom competitor. So, Bill, what do you think of it all?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. You know, Ken was right when he said, you know, about the price. You know, that price last year was crazy for that, and I think that turned off a lot of people. And I think also too, I think, you know, when it comes down to it, and I think we'd probably be in consensus in saying, you know, we want to have something to be able to control it, and we want to have a controller. And I think those things are key. I mean, it's sparking some interest, that's for sure. Some people are talking about it. And, you know, while we're on this subject, and I know Ken did a video on this, and I wanted to ask Ken about this. Unique is going down in the alphabet, like you said, Ken. They're going from Q to G. What are your thoughts about what you've seen about that so far, about the Manus G?
You know, and just obviously nobody has this in their hands just yet. And if they do, they're probably over in Europe. That seems to be Unique's target market as of late. They usually launch things over in Europe, and then it trickles over to the US. We saw that with the Mantis Q. And I was watching that video and really sort of scrutinizing it. And there was a lot of things that they sort of reused from the original Mantis Q ad. But the thing that still eludes me is all the aerial shots, if they were actually from that Mantis G, because they looked really nice. I mean, they weren't overly saturated. They looked really natural. They sort of had like a very filmic sort of feel to it. And those colors to me are very attractive. They may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I thought they looked amazing if that's exactly what it is. And that's also dependent on what type of drone this actually is. You know, I'm going to try to get one in my hand because I'm not really sure if it's going to be like a toy grade or if it's actually going to be more like prosumer-ish. I don't know. It's still a question, but it's curious for sure.
Ron, Marcus, your thoughts?
Marcus, go ahead.
That $700 price point, I thought that Drone Valley, Rick over there had it right on, that it needed to be around $500 because I suspect, just by the look of it, and but what we know about the Mantis Q is it is more of a toy looking drone, even though it may have some higher functions. I think that style of drone, I think that $500 price point is pretty important. But although DJI is really raising their prices, so maybe not.
We talked about this a little last night. Uniques, you know, without getting into the Mantis G particulars, the problem with the Unique is, and I don't mean to be critical of Unique because I've never owned a Unique product, so I'm just speaking from what I see on the internet. They've really never knocked it out of the park with any of their products. I mean, they've always left something on the table with every product they've released. So they need a winner this time. They can't come out with a product and when it comes out, the reviewers say, well, it needs this, or it doesn't do this. They need to come out, and again, they need to knock it out of the park with this model. And I think it's definitely in the you know, the consumer area. It's in with the Mavic Air, the Anafi. It's in that segment. It's not in the Mavic Pro segment. You know, what it does have, whether this feature comes through, it advertises 33 minutes of flight time, which puts it in the Mavic 2 category, but none of the other, specs put it in that category. So, Bill, what's your take on this?
That's interesting, Ron, that you brought up that 33 minutes, and I know that kind of jumped out to me right away. But I'm thinking it's a Mavic 2 wannabe and a Mavic Air kind of body. And the other thing that several people have pointed out to me too was, that they're saying that looks like a 2-axis gimbal and not a 3-axis gimbal on it. And again, and I know Ken knows about this too. We talked about this before with Unique, especially with their Typhoons. I mean, this will supposedly have more range than their biggest and best drones. So that's just, I don't know. I'm just, I think Ken's right. I think we need to see this before we really kind of pass judgment on it. As far as that's concerned, because I know a lot of people have. That was the comment that I was getting back on my video was people says, we kind of need to take a wait and see attitude. But the two things that I heard or three things was they doubt if it's going to have 33 minutes of flight time. They also doubt, and it doesn't have obstacle avoidance. I mean, everybody said that about the Anafi when it came out. And now with this, the other thing people are saying with a 2-axis gimbal. So we'll see when that comes out. We'll kind of.
Bill, does anybody in this show, has anybody in the show ever owned a Unique product?
I've had a Unique Breeze way back when, and I'll tell you that it didn't last incredibly long because I had issues trying to transfer 4K files because sort of back then, like 3-4 years ago, it seemed like everything had internal storage and then you had to transfer it over via Wi-Fi or plug it into your computer. And I think a file corrupt and Unique had to basically reflash it. And I don't know, that was the end of that. And that was the first and only time. But one of the big things that Unique needs to do too is provide smart batteries for their drones. One of the biggest comment that I've seen was, does it have smart batteries? I know it has a 2-axis gimbal on this one, but Unique has notoriously not included self-discharging batteries or batteries that are capable of maintaining themselves over a long duration. So like with the Typhoon H and the Typhoons, after a period of time, these LiPo batteries, they have bad cells, they have damage. And all those stories we used to hear of like Typhoons falling out of the sky, that was because of batteries that weren't properly maintained. You got to treat them like you treat FPV batteries in that sense. So hopefully they fix all of that.
Good comment, Ken.
Yeah, I agree, Ken. That is a good comment. One of the other things too is, with all of this, their price, I think Ron touched on a good point as far as price is concerned. And of course, that's from Rick Smith too, to really be competitive in that segment that they're in, it's going to have to hit around $500. I saw the price when it was announced and I was just like, okay, that's pricey. That's real pricey. And that's asking people to take a step and to take a leap of faith. I mean, that's kind of the way it is with Unique right now. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at with all of that. Ken, your business, I have to say something. I am absolutely amazed at the work you do and everything that you do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, your business, what you do, and that it's more than just drones when you're shooting real estate?
So, how long has this been now? So last year, we're coming up on a year in October since I've had the 107 license. Matter of fact, the last meetup we had, I don't know if you remember this, Bill, we had a meetup in Florida. Billy came down. It's funny, like we always seem to meet up around the same time of year. We had a meetup at the Sulphur Springs Water Tower, and Brian was there at the time, and he was talking about the 107, and we went ahead and got the 107 licenses, both Billy and myself, like literally like 2.5 weeks later. And, I started this company called Apex Aerial Imaging. And at the time, the goal was to just offer aerial services. And I probably sat around from the end of October, once I had the license, till probably just a little bit before December, and didn't get squat for business, like nothing. Nobody was even giving me a shot. And I think it was a realtor. I gave a business card out to a realtor, and she said to me, she goes, "Do you do interior photos as well?" And I said, "Yeah, I do interior photos and video." And at the time, I had no freaking idea how to even do interior photo or videos. But I was just like, yeah, I do that. And I did a couple of gigs for her, and they were horrendous, but she loved them. And I was not happy with any of them. So I started going to the drawing board of trying to figure out how to give better products and how to get better with it, and research. So finally I got to the point where I'm at now, where I can do video and photo all in like 2 hours for my clients. And so sort of that's like what I'm known for right now in, the Tampa market is video and photo. Like if you buy a package with me, you're going to get listing video, you're going to get photos. And so far it's been pretty good. I mean, there hasn't been a week where I haven't had, at least 3 or 4 clients, which is more than enough to keep me busy at least.
So, hey, Ken, with that, I know you use the Evo a lot because it gets, the color palette on that is just insane. I mean, that's my favorite thing about the Evo. But you also use the Mavic too, and do you also use the Phantom 4 too?
I used the Phantom 4. It was funny. I had a shoot. It was a $1 million listing we were doing, and I said to myself, well, I want 4K 60, but I also want to have, the resolution and everything of the 1-inch sensor. So I brought the Phantom with me, and I started flying that, and I was like, it just is a little bit more loose. If you're so used to flying a Mavic, you have a lot more precision, or even the Evo has a lot more precision than the Phantom. And the other thing was the ISO for D-Log is at 500 on the P4, which drives me nuts, which means I have to use ND filters and all this crap to just try to get a good image. So I really do lean towards the Mavic 2 Pro heavily when I'm doing photos, because it's so convenient. I can get it up in the air. I don't feel like I'm bothering people. Like, people don't hear it. You take the P4 out and you're gonna have people asking you, what are you doing? The Mavic 2 Pro is very unobtrusive. Nobody really bothers me or hassles me. And when I can't get that up in the air for restriction reasons or whatever, I'll use the Evo. And I'm basically talking about having to go through the unlock process. I still get all my waivers, but it's just easier after I've already, got my authorization through Kitty Hawk, not to have to unlock the drone. So then the Evo comes into play, when it comes down to that.
Marcus and Ron, have you guys seen any of Ken's videos from real estate at all?
Oh yeah, they're phenomenal. Yeah. They're really good. So congratulations, Ken.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I really enjoy those videos. I love the one where you use the Insta360, in the house to film the rooms and whatever, and put it all together in, I forget the name of the software. I thought that was amazing.
Those colors come out, and every time I look at them, I'm just like, wow. I see, Ken, you really got to find your niche with this. So is this you're going to be your full-time gig next year?
I'm hoping. I mean, there's some things that may potentially, derail that for a little bit, but we'll see how it goes. As of right now, yeah. I mean, providing, the real estate market doesn't, drop out. I mean, can't really control that, but yeah, I think this will probably be something I could be doing full time. Trying to work my way into weddings next. I think that's where there's a lot of bread and butter there. Wedding videos are really huge down here in Florida in the cooler months. Springtime's huge.
That should be good. Getting back to the Mavic too, absolutely had a blast when we went over to the Skyway Bridge to fly. That was just that was a blast. And I think one of the things we really didn't talk a lot about or advertise a lot was that dead grouper on the
Oh man.
Oh my gosh.
That Goliath grouper was huge, and it stunk so bad. So bad. Luckily, I mean, the wind was blowing towards the bridge, and we we couldn't smell it from where we were, but it was sort of hard to not. But if anything came from that, it kept people away from where we were.
Yeah, that's true.
They're like, oh, there's a dead fish. It was sort of like, people repellent.
And there were people,
it sort of worked.
Going on doing parasailing over to the right of us, and Ken saw that, and I was just like, because I was going to start flying on down there. So I said, let's bring that back. We don't want to go down there. And
I started taking off in that direction. And, the trees, you couldn't see above the trees for a minute. And as soon as I came up over the tree, I saw a parasailer. I'm like, holy crap. So I just flew as high as I could to get up over him.
Well, one of the other things we found out too, Ken was trying to get his battery back in the Mavic 2 and it wasn't fitting in. And I was like, I think that's swollen. And it's just like, holy crap. Have you?
Yeah.
So what's going on with that, Ken?
So last week, I think it was last Monday, I finally sent the batteries. DJI reached out to me on Twitter and they said, hey, that's, not really normal to have 2 batteries back to back. They looked at the flights and I thought I had many more charges on these, but I forgot throughout the year, I've cycled through probably a dozen batteries just between sending batteries back and forth between DroneWorks and myself, that my batteries that I had that were swollen, one had 25 flights on it. The other one had 35 or 37 flights, somewhere in there. But if you think about that over a course of a year, you've drained a battery fully and you've charged it back to full 37 times. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I fly typically about 5 days a week. So that's a lot, but still they shouldn't have swollen that quickly and that immensely. And during heat, it's even worse. And what was happening was it was actually starting to declip, and I would get a warning and it would say, please check battery connection. Battery is loose. I'm like, what?
Wow.
So that's sort of scary.
Oh yeah.
So DJI is going to take care of those for you?
He sort of alluded to the fact that he would. I mean, all right. So I sort of bullied them a little bit on Twitter. Not like intentionally, but sort of like, messing with them. And I guess they sort of took it as, well, what the heck, they thought, they were like, well, this is definitely not normal. So I think they will. Unfortunately, it's coming at a bad time because I need the batteries now. Luckily, going up to Philly on Friday, Billy's got enough batteries to power the whole Northeast. So I should be okay.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's one of the things, that whole thing about that, when I saw that, I was just like, holy crap. I said,
I didn't even think of it.
Yeah. Like you saw it when it came and you were trying to put it back. I'm like, wow, I'm glad you didn't take off with that in there.
Well, I'm glad you caught it, because then that's, it had me pause and look at the other ones, because I had 3 of them on me, and out of the 3, only 1 wasn't swollen.
I thought they were supposed to last for like more than 100 charge cycles.
You would think that, but and the same thing goes, I was dealing with this gimbal issue over the weekend. A lot of times, when we do reviews and we're posting things out there online, what people don't really account for, and I guess we don't do a good enough job of really talking about it, is everything is situational, because you have to deal with the elements in the area you're in. I'm in Florida, and on any given day down here in the month of August, it can be 95, 98 degrees outside, plus humidity. So all these factors go into play when you're talking about longevity of products and devices. But still, I would think it would be able to handle or withstand that type of heat.
Well, let's say, so it's $135 a battery, or excuse me, $159 a battery. So if you only get 39 flights, that means it costs you $4.54 each flight. So that's kind of putting it in perspective.
Yeah, and that's not, and that I wouldn't even say, the ROI on that is worth it at that point, because I was thinking about it. I had to do, 3 or 4 gigs this week, and I fly in almost every shoot. It's very seldom that you're not flying. And I had I spent probably $300 in batteries just to replace what's damaged, just so I can fly. Now, what's odd is I have the Evo. I have 5 batteries for the Evo, and I have some batteries for over a year and no issues with those batteries. So it's just peculiar.
Well, I want to go ahead and greet some people in the chat tonight. Philly Drone Life is here. G-Boy 185 is here. Paul Murray is in the house tonight. Art's here tonight. Lauren is here tonight. Robert Rotor, I assume that's your name, Robert, from Texas. Anders Blixt from Sweden, welcome tonight. And if I've missed anybody, my apologies, but I want to welcome everybody here. I wanted to take a DJI has a conference coming up at the end of the month, and I think that's out. Yeah, it's out in Los Angeles. Their Airworks conference, and it's going to be real interesting because this is definitely something that is with a commercial type of theme and background and everything. And from what I'm hearing, DJI may pull a release of a commercial drone during this point in time. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I haven't heard anything commercially being announced, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's sort of their premier keynote. But
especially commercial,
yeah. And DJI is always the type of manufacturer, much like Apple. They don't release new products at public events where other manufacturers are usually at, because I know commercial UAV is going to be going on end of October. So, I mean, there's going to be some new units being announced there, no doubt. I mean, there's usually always new commercial products coming through. There's always a need for it there.
Yeah, that's that's one thing too. And this is open for everybody. Did you guys see Brian Singleton's video today?
Of course we did.
That was classic. That was awesome.
The tin hat special.
Yes, the tin hat special. What do you guys think of his video?
I thought he was Rachel Maddow connecting the dots on CNN or whatever. Except Ron's a conservative, so I got to use somebody from another news network. But no, it was. I mean, I would say it's true, but it was certainly entertaining, and he certainly made some points. Marcus, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. He did make some great points, and if you haven't watched it yet, you need to, because it's really entertaining. He puts on a tin hat and everything, but the essence of what he's saying is he feels like that DJI is exiting the consumer drone business, which I kind of disagree. Well, not kind of. I do disagree with. I don't think they are. However, he does make some great points, and I think one of the best analogies that he laid out there was he was talking about how many of the DJI drones are not available. And he said, well, what if you went to the Ford store and they said, hey, we don't have any F-150s right now. We may later, but there's no F-150s. It's their best-selling product. So he made some really good points, and it's a very entertaining video. And I'm going to dig out a link, and I'm going to put it in the chat here.
And Marcus forgot to mention his world famous spreadsheet. Marcus has been tracking the availability of the DJI drones, the consumer DJI drones, new and refurb, for about a month now. And to the point Brian's making, this is like going into a Walmart and the shelves are half empty or whatever. Nobody's restocking the shelves, and we don't get any reason why the shelves are empty. We don't even get an excuse like the truck's late or something like that. Again, the shelves are half bare, and there's no explanation. Ken, have you noticed this?
So the deal with DJI and the restock and the replenishing, obviously you need to have supply and demand. If the demand isn't there, they're not going to replenish. And now it's coming at a premium for them to replenish the shelves or bring stock in over, whether you're a distributor, whatever, Best Buy, doesn't matter. They have to pay these tariffs, and these tariffs are expensive. Went from 10, 20, I think it's like almost 30% on certain products. And if you notice, not every company is having this issue. It's only certain companies. So like we think about like Apple just released their products today. Apple's products are being manufactured overseas in China, Foxconn, and then they're being shipped in. So they're still bringing those in at a relatively low cost. They actually lower the prices this year, even with the tariffs. So you sort of wonder if certain products are getting special treatment, and then you have these other products that aren't something that's necessarily in need. Like everybody needs a smartphone. Not everybody needs a drone. That these other manufacturers don't get preferred or preferential treatment like DJI. But 100%, we're definitely seeing a lull in the drone market because of these new, restrictions, these tariffs in place. I mean, Autel, basically put it out there because they have to raise their prices. They can no longer sustain the level at which they were absorbing this cost. it comes to a point where, you know, they have to say we're in business to be in business, but we can't stay in business anymore if we're, you know, cutting our nose to spite our face type of thing. So
Ken also, Parrot also raised their prices too, because the Parrot drones are manufactured in China as well. So just wanted to make that point.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, anything and everything that's manufactured overseas is being affected to this. But again, I still think we're seeing some form of preferential treatment. Like obviously Apple, richest company in the world. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if they were exempt or something. It just wouldn't shock me one bit.
Tim Cook did just meet with the president last week, I believe.
Oh yeah, sure. Right before the iPhone release.
Yeah. And didn't they, I thought they gave them some kind of special dispensation through December or something like that.
You're exactly right, Marcus. I heard that. I read that and heard that as well too. So, I mean, you know, I would, you know, money talks. Okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly. And, you know, eventually we'll see this whole situation be resolved and, you know, prices will normalize, obviously, you know, but it is what it is right now. And I think that's a lot of the reason why too many haven't put out new products. And maybe that could also be a reason why you got people like Parrot, who is opting to sort of reuse or repurpose a drone. Like now we have the Parrot, you know, Anafi FPV. All it is an Anafi with glasses, and they've given it a new mode. Exactly. So it's just sort of weird.
I want to speak to something Ken just said about normalizing prices. I hope Ken's right, because I have the feeling that you know, once these prices have been raised in these drones, it's never going back. The price increase, no matter if they say the tariff thing solved a month from now, a week from now, they say it's all solved, we're all good now. Those prices, they're never going back down to the pre-tariff, no matter what the resolution of the tariff fiasco.
And to that, that's why, you know, in one of my videos, I was talking about the tariffs and somebody said, well, you can't claim the sky is falling and tell people to go buy a drone if they don't have one, because the price is going to come back down. But the factor that obviously a lot of people don't account for is greed. And you've got companies that like DJI who have been hit, you know, taken a, you know, for lack of better words, a swift kick in the dick over the course of a couple of months internally. And then you raise the prices. So, you know, they could essentially use that as a way to normalize their bankroll. And sometimes you got to give companies like that a gut check and just go with the competitor, or hope a competitor emerges that can do it better or just as good. I would take just as good at this point.
Like maybe Skydio?
Yeah, I'd be totally okay with Skydio or, you know, even if Parrot said, hey, we've got this whole other drone, you know, I'm willing to give them a go again. Anybody, hell, even Unique at this point.
You know, one of the things that I hear a lot from people over in the Europe and UK, that a lot of the comments, number one, now you're finally paying what we're paying. And the other one is, you know, as far as not seeing any drones are concerned, one of the things that they're saying is, you know, the rules for drones are, it's a very fluid situation over in Europe and the European Union. And that's why they said DJI have not come out with drones yet. But, you know, and we all know that they're going to have their AirSense is supposed to be on every drone over 250 grams in 2020. That's what DJI says. But, you know, I'm taking all that with a grain of salt, because I'm not sure if a lot of these regulations are going to mandate that these drones have certain equipment on them or not. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, if they require, like, you know, ADS, was it ADS-B, I believe, like the receivers. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing that's really stating that it has to be required yet. I mean, the FAA has sort of got to draw like a hard line in the sand with the manufacturers and, you know, stipulate that. I mean, it'd be great to see units ship with that, but I don't think that's a reason why we're not seeing these you know, new products. I mean, they can implement that multiple ways, but I don't think that's the reason why. I mean, obviously, you know, restrictions have become tighter here in the US, and, you know, you look at it across the world, which is sort of sad because there's really been no reason why they've been tightened.
Totally.
You know, maybe they're doing it, you know, preventively to try to think, you know, forecast for the future, but it's sort of asinine. And I sort of feel like there's a lot of lobbying going along with this, in the airspace, because you have all these companies that are wanting something that legally they can't do. Like they want to do this drone delivery, but it's autonomous and you're beyond visual line of sight. So essentially it's like you have to rewrite rules or have exemptions put in place to skirt what we have to abide by now. It's some goofy stuff. I mean, it really is goofy.
I just was thinking about that today, Ken, exactly what you're talking about how the regulations are increasing. I got to thinking about, okay, who has a stake in not wanting aerial drone video to be done by somebody like you, right? If you owned, think about this, if you owned a helicopter company and one of your big deals was getting stabilized aerial video for people, and now all of a sudden you have somebody that can throw up an Inspire and get just as good a quality aerial shot as what they used to do with a helicopter. And then the same thing in the agricultural field. Those farmers used to hire aeronautical companies to go out and do the kind of things that people are doing with drones now. So I kind of wonder if that isn't part of why you see a little pressure on the drone industry too.
I don't necessarily know if it would be like, choppers or things of that nature, because, there's definitely still a demand. I mean, you look at New York City's airspace, or when I was in Seattle, you look up at the airspace there, and it's probably one of the most cluttered airspaces around the country, for a localized state. I mean, everything, there's seaplanes, there's choppers flying across, Puget Sound. I mean, there's islands where people are flying their private planes in and out of. So for me, I would say, if I was, somebody who produced, like, let's say Bell or, a Sikorsky that was producing, choppers that were to be sold, I wouldn't really worry about, us. I mean, if anything, they should develop and angle their technology to become more future proof. Like when I was at CES, we're looking at all this alternate modes of transportation, and these Uber choppers basically that they had, which were just drones, glorified drones, were really amazing. And if they put their effort towards that, that would be much better, suited for the future. And then they wouldn't have to worry about us. But obviously there needs to be classification levels of, flight, so we don't have midair collisions. And that's when things are going to start getting goofy, is when you have low altitude flights. I don't think there's too much of an issue really right now, but once low altitude flights become a thing, or like, transportation leaves the ground and moves towards the air, that's when we're going to have problems.
And potentially AI can solve some of those problems.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Marcus, you had your tin hat on there for a second.
Well, it was just something that occurred to me, because it seems like you talk to almost any pilot, and boy, they're against drones like you can't believe. And so I got to thinking, well, there might be an industry reason for that. So
you have to wonder that pilots that are against drones, it could be because of the way that the FAA categorizes drones. Like you've got a guy that's, went to school to become a pilot, and then you have a guy that takes a test and studies for 2 weeks and goes and gets his 107. And technically, by the definition on my license, I'm an unmanned aerial pilot. It's sort of insulting to that airline pilot that went to school and had to log X number of flights to even classify me as a pilot, even though I'm flying something that's, from the ground or on, from a distance. So I can understand their disdain towards drone pilots. I don't think it's necessarily they're upset about the thing that we're flying. I think it's how they classify us in general. Like we need to be our own separate thing.
It's totally different over in the UK. I had a gentleman on, and I'm sorry, I forget your name, from the UK, and he runs a drone school over there. And part of their test, I mean, they have to take a written exam, but part of it's a practical exam. They have to fly, and they have to fly in front of an instructor in order to get certified. And, and a lot of people are saying, that's something that probably should happen here in the United States.
I agree with that.
I mean, because yeah, and Ken, just like me, there's a lot of people out there who may have the book knowledge, who can pass a test without any problems, but they're fumble fingers when it comes to the sticks.
Yeah, and there's a lot that's on that 107 test that doesn't apply whatsoever to a drone. I mean, Billy's probably said it more than myself about that, and it's something he's really passionate about, is that they need to revise the 107. It needs to become much more relevant for a UAV.
Well, I talked to a private pilot about that, Ken, and he told me, he said most, if not all, those questions you'll find on a private pilot's exam. And Billy is right. I mean, think about this. It's $150 every 2 years. I mean, that's a cash grab from the FAA as far as making money is concerned. And let me give you guys an example. I have my ham radio license. I'm an amateur extra. And you know how long my license is good for? 10 years. Okay. And to renew it, I just have to go online to be able to do it. I got to pass like maybe 5 questions, which are pretty cut and dry. But I mean, and there's responsibilities with that too, because if I set up an antenna wrong out in the yard, I'm going to be shooting radiation either into my house or into somebody else's house. So, I mean, there's some responsibilities there as far as that's concerned. But, I mean, I think the FCC has their act together a whole lot better than the FAA does.
I agree.
Good comment, Bill.
Well, it could be with regard to drones, is that we know that the regulations are, because it's an industry that's in its relative infancy, regulations will evolve and change. So, and rules. So that might be some thinking behind that 2-year rotation. Just a thought.
Well, I'm thinking they're going to do that. It was good bringing up when I think Ken brought up about Apple and everything, and I think that's one of the things I want to talk a little bit about here. Obviously, the big event today out in California. We're glad Ron made it back in time from it. I'm sure he probably had dinner with Mr. Cook and company. But anyway,
I picked the tab up.
Chick-fil-A. Spare no expense.
No, okay. None.
And we talked a little bit about this as well too. It's no secret, and I know Rick Smith even did a video on this, that Apple products work better with the DJI Go 4 app and with DJI products in general. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about that, because I know Rick actually got into it and he started talking about the code. And I'm like, okay, Rick, in that video, I'm like, okay, I used to be a programmer, but that was a long time ago in a galaxy far away. So, I want to get your guys' thoughts as far as compatibility first. It really seems to me, and I know, when I'm out there, when I'm using my Phantom 4 without the smart controller, I'm using my iPad Mini 4. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's exactly what I need. What your guys' thoughts are as far as using Apple products with DJI?
Well, Bill, I'm always been an iOS guy. I did have an Android tablet at one point, and I could use it well with a DJI Go 3, but once 4 hit, it no longer worked. But otherwise, I've always used an iPhone or an iPad Mini. But we all know that one of the reasons why iOS works better is because, the drone makers, they only have to program for, like one device. There's a million different people making Android devices. Only one company makes the iPhone. So it's easier. They can't test every single one of those Android phones, hundreds on the market, and see if they all work with the drone in a reasonable amount of time. So that's one of the reasons. And I'm going to throw this as an extension of this thing. Were you aware today that Apple's new iPhone Pro will have 1,200 nits, Bill?
Yes, I was.
It will be brighter than the smart controller now.
Yes, Marcus told us that, and I'm like
1,200 at its peak, though, not sustained. So it'll be 800 sustained, 1,200 peak.
Okay. So, the smart controller, what's this sustained? Is it
the sustained is 1,000 sustained?
Okay, but it can peak higher.
I've never. I imagine it's possible, but it's an LCD screen. So you got to think the LCDs are going to interact differently than an AMOLED. Right. The diffusion's entirely different through that. So I don't know if you'd get the same, residual experience.
So I won't have to throw my smart controller on eBay and go back to the iPhone.
No, and
thanks for that news.
Here's the thing with the smart controller, and like we're talking about, iOS and DJI products. The smart controller and even my Phantom 4 Pro Advanced, that is all Android. And that is probably the best experience I've had with DJI Go 4 because DJI knows exactly what that hardware is. So when those SDKs are released, they have their own set SDK and they're catering to that particular controller and product. They know the quirks, they know its strengths, they know its weaknesses. When you're dealing with Samsung and Huawei and all these other manufacturers, and I don't think there's quite as many manufacturers as there once was. I think many of them have been, absorbed at this point. But in any regards, you're dealing with countless amounts of different hardware. And Android is sort of like a chameleon operating system in which that it's programmed to adapt to different screens, different refresh rates, different hardware, RAM, CPUs, GPUs. So it's designed to work with it all. And, the SDK is definitely different between applications. But I've had no problem with the smart controller at all. It's been completely flawless, knock on wood. Now that I say that, something will happen. But it's been a great experience. And that's what you would want out of a product. But the downside to that is you have to spend $749 to get the best possible Android experience. That's sort of the downside. And it only works with 2 devices.
Hudson ran into that with Apple when they were developing the Zino. People with Android phones had a heck of a time, and obviously with Apple they just had to develop one app for that. And I felt sorry for anybody that tried to fly that drone with Android because they struggled.
Now with Autel, they're the exact opposite. They've had a great experience with Android, and primarily that's because when they first started developing it, Apple wouldn't push their updates through. So they kept putting them in an endless cycle of review. That was the delay with the iOS application when the Evo was first launching, because they were making the migration from, we don't want, the X-Star app anymore. We want to move over to Autel Explorer. And what an ordeal that was. But the Android experience, that has been flawless on that device. So it's hit or miss. It depends on the development and, where their developers are prioritizing, I guess, bug fixes essentially.
There's a comment from 123 the man, and he's already sent me an email. Bill, tell people that wanted to use 2 pair of DJI goggles at the same time with a Mavic 2 that they don't make the same mistake I made buying them, because they won't work like they did with the Mavic Pro. That was real interesting. He had sent me an email on that as well, and I think that's a good point bringing up, because you on the Mavic Pro you used to be able to use 2 pair of DJI goggles on any problem, but with the Mavic 2 you can't do that. So and he apparently, I think he pinged DJI on that, and they said it's probably like a low priority kind of a thing, and they're probably not going to do anything about that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was just something that I thought. Okay, well, I pretty much know what the answer is going to be from you gentlemen, but we'll start with Ken, and I know Ken, you're getting a new iPhone. What model are you going to get?
I'm going to go with the 11 Pro.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely going to go with the 11 Pro. I'm probably going to go with the green one, just because it looks, it looks interesting. It's not quite black, but not quite green, but it looks good.
Marcus.
Yeah, I definitely excuse me, I'm removing one of the comments right this second here. We got a fellow here that's we need to.
Yeah, I see that.
Remove the user. Okay, I put him in timeout, Bill. I don't know if you can remove him.
Okay.
But in any case, 11 Pro for me too. And the big thing for me is the 800 nits sustained and 1200 peak. I think that's going to be huge. I was using my iPad mini previously. I got the iPhone XS, and I just started using it almost exclusively when I fly, because it's kind of just the right size. And so the 11 Pro with a brighter screen and even more processing power is just a home run for me.
I'm the same way. I'm going with the Pro, the smaller one, the 5.8 inch size Pro, rather than the bigger 6.5. Like Marcus and I had a discussion. It was so great when I got rid of my 7 Plus and got a phone that would actually fit in my pockets again. Yeah. So I'm staying with the smaller size.
And I don't know if you guys heard them say it or not, but they said the battery life on the 11 Pro is 4 hours more than the XS.
Yeah, I did hear that.
So
That's right.
So 4 hours more, that you're putting it in, you know, in a whole new territory. So for me, I have the iPhone 10. I haven't upgraded to an XS. And I mean, yeah, I can get through a day if I'm, you know, moderately using it and not really beating it up too bad. But that extra 4 hours is a lot. So I'm definitely gonna lean towards that because I'm the same way. I really don't want like an oversized phone in my pocket, but I'm more so just curious about these cameras, that ultra wide angle lens and the new, you know, processor that's able to handle dynamic range entirely different has got me thinking, especially after having this issue with the gimbal and having moment lenses on there. Well, now I don't need a lens to be able to have that super wide field of view. I can just have it ready to go. Have 3 lenses actually ready to go at any moment notice.
Right.
You were the first guy I thought of when I heard that, Ken. I'm not joking. As soon as I heard about that ultra wide,
I was sold, man.
That's a problem. Yeah.
They said wide angle lens. I was like, I was sold. I mean, I was using the anamorphic lens, and I mean, but still, I mean, bad positioning, just a bad design to put a motor directly on the plate where your phone is going to go. Just bad. It's just it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I love that video, Ken. I'm so glad you got the Osmo 3 and did that video. And, you know, and with Apple, you know, not only those lenses, whatever, but it looks like the computational photography is what makes the iPhone special. It's the secret sauce above even the hardware.
Boom.
I'm curious to see, because I don't know if you caught it too. They said that there is a mode where it's going to take 9 photos, and what it'll do is it'll HDR blend that. Well, that's very similar to what I do, how I shoot my photos for homes. I take a series of 5, you know, bracketed exposures, and we stitch them in Photoshop to get the best exposure. But to have a phone that could potentially have a little bit of room to tweak or to get, you know, an already good image, I mean, sort of scary. I mean, it's sort of scary depending on how good it's going to be.
And the best part of that, Ken, was it's doing it on its own. It's not it's not like you're half pressing the button or hitting anything. As soon as you line up the shot before you press the button, it's taking those advanced photos. And as soon as you take the finger off the shutter button, it's taking the after photos. So it's doing it on its own, and you just see the results. I don't think you even have to stitch it together in post. It'll just boom, be there.
That's what's really amazing. I mean, I think the changes, and that's why, you know, I'm not sound like an iPhone fanboy, but I've tried to go to Android several times. I've tried, and every single time I have found some sort of compromise that's brought me back over to an iPhone. And you know, I use a Windows computer for most of my editing, and which is fine. But for everything else, I travel with a MacBook. I have my iPads, and I mean, it's a seamless experience across the board. And that's what I look for.
So you just mentioned that you use a Windows computer for editing. Yeah. Why is that as opposed to a high-end Mac?
Because a lot of times, like with what I'm doing, you know, I need like raw horsepower, and I'm not a Final Cut Pro editor, and I've never really liked Final Cut Pro. I've tried it. It's definitely faster. You can export video crazy fast, but I don't really care about exporting fast. I care about the process of actually editing the video I'm working on. So I don't care if it rendered all night, doesn't matter to me. But if it makes my life easier as I'm working through a project, that's what matters. And the reason why I edit on PC is Premiere Pro really does work well with PC. So does DaVinci, if anybody's a DaVinci editor, but Premiere Pro works seamlessly, and I can have a crazy fast computer for $1,600 as opposed to having to drop the price of a Fiat or a smart car on, you know, on something that's not any more up to date than what's already available out there. Somebody just did a video comparing Apple's computer hardware. They bought a $300 laptop. I think it was Snazzy Labs. He did this video, bought a $300 laptop, and they installed Mac OS on it, and they benchmarked it and ran all these tests, and it runs better than Apple's MacBook Air. So if that tells you anything about hardware, I mean, the software is so optimized, you don't have to spend a lot for hardware. That's why I edit on PC. But when I travel, I have a rule. Laptops from now on will always be a MacBook. Because I think Apple makes great hardware when it comes to laptops, though.
And what Ken didn't mention, I think it's just until this year, Apple hadn't updated their Mac Pros in years.
No,
So there
yeah.
really wasn't a good Mac Pro hardware option out until just recently.
Not anything that was modular, but even still, if you look at the price of that thing, it's expensive. It's incredibly expensive. I think I built this entire rig sitting to the right of me for, I think I've got maybe $1,900 into it. And what's great is things become outdated or I need more, I can just take that part off, put a new part in, and, go from there.
Yeah, and like Ken's saying, he's using Adobe Premiere, so that one B is optimized to run on the Mac Pro as Final Cut. Like the great thing about Final Cut is I have a MacBook Pro, like a 2-year-old one with just an i5 in it, and it runs fine on lower spec hardware. Well, I mean, it's run fine. It doesn't burn through 4K video, but it works.
Right. So hang on a second, Ron. Really quick. I just want to address this jackass in the comments. Hey, Darren, it's a free for all chat. We're talking about tech. If you're so concerned on whether or not this is a drone channel, I would highly urge you to go get your drone. Stop watching YouTube because clearly you're not flying. I don't know what time it is over there in Ireland, but go fly or whatever, man. It's called Rotor Talk with Bill. It's Rotor Talk Live. It's whatever talk. So if you can't handle that, go pound sand, fly a kite, dude. Sorry.
That's all right. And we use these to fly our drones. So it's kind of important.
I mean, it's
right.
silly.
Half the world uses this to fly their drone with. It's a drone accessory.
Talking about, phones, because I mean, these are essential, these upgrades, especially that 1200 nits of brightness is going to be the deciding factor. Yeah. Do you drop $750 on, a smart controller that you only use your drone on, or you drop $700 or $1,000 on this, which is now everything?
Plus, even if you are using smart controller, you may have this sitting on a tripod filming your drone video. This could be B-roll if it's not your controller. So this can be used almost any way in flying your drone, whether it's a controller, whether it's B-roll, whatever. This or an Android phone, it's a valuable tool in the drone world. So
exactly. And I think that's going to be a hard sale for people now to buy the smart controller now with, obviously if somebody's really hell-bent on Android, they'll still buy an Android device. The Samsungs are still a good choice in that regard.
Right. Exactly.
The supercomputer in your pocket. Right? I mean, it really is.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about before we wrap things up tonight is your podcast, Ken. You and Billy's podcast. Absolutely love what you guys do. I think that's just and I know you said you've talked to me about this, and it's so much easier for you guys just to do the audio part of it, and you're able to crank more on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So we took a massive break from when we had we were the Overcast podcast for a long time. We started off with that, and we had this idea, okay, we'll do video style, and I guess we put too much thought into doing the video, and we were traveling back and forth. Like what nobody realizes, like, I would fly to Philly, Billy would come down to Florida, and we were spending a lot of money flying back and forth. Not that it was a bad thing, because it was fun, but it also meant that we couldn't be relevant with our topics. So by the time we had drone news, it may have been already, happened or old. And one of the key episodes that sticks out in my mind was the Gatwick episodes. When that whole, thing went down at the airport, we had talked about it 2 days before, but the podcast wasn't set to release for another 4 days. So by the time it released, that was already old news, and everything we had said in that podcast was irrelevant. So it made doing these episodes much harder. And obviously with Billy doing the primary portion of the editing, it was tough on him. So now the way we have it is, we basically call each other on the phone. We keep our AirPods in. We have our recorders open, and we sit there and shoot the entire episode. We do 3 a week. This week we haven't done any because obviously he's moving, and we're going to be together on Friday. So we'll probably shoot one then and just take a breather, but we can crank out 3 a week. Everything is current. We're shooting them as they're happening, which is phenomenal. So it goes Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the set schedule in which we're launching these episodes. And we're going for much longer now because video is not an element. We can go for 45 minutes to an hour, and it's not a big deal. And that was the ultimate, kicker.
Yeah, I think it was a wise choice, Ken, because most people listen to podcasts either in the car or when they're exercising.
Right. And
They don't
that
really
was
need
my
the video
thing.
component of it.
And the other thing was too, if I listened to the podcast, the old podcast, they didn't sound the same. Like when you think about like a podcast, you think about sort of like a warm tone to somebody's voice, like a conversation. And the video just didn't have the same tone because we're sharing one mic. So now we each have our own mic. You can tell there's a different inflection in the voice. It's just just a better experience. And then obviously our main focus is not actually YouTube. It's the Spotify and Apple downloads. That's where we're seeing the vast majority of our traction because there isn't another podcast quite like this on YouTube, or I should say Spotify or Apple.
That's one thing with me too, Ken. A couple things that I do is, with these Rotor Talk Lives, within 24 hours, I turn it around. I turn it into a podcast. And, Spotify is good. iTunes is good. Also Google Play is good. But then I go ahead and I'm putting it out on the other channel, the limited edition channel, and people are picking it up. Like you said, I'm getting a lot of traction. Actually, Podbean is where I'm getting like my most traction. That they've actually it's my number of downloads is through the roof through Podbean. So people really like being able to do it. And like Ron said, when you're in the car and if you're exercising, it's perfect. It's just, especially the time, like 40, 45 minutes kind of a thing. It's great because people can just, they're not going to have to hit pause or replay or whatever. Just let it play, let it go kind of a thing. I think it's great.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's been much better. It's easier to have more conversations, and it's literally what him and I would do on the phone, and that's what makes it much more casual and relaxed. I felt like when we were on camera, it was just, I don't know, like you feel like you have to act a certain way, I guess, because we have an on-camera presence. Like when we have a certain way that we film our videos and we do things, but when we're on the phone, or even if we're just not filming and we're just goofing off and hanging out, we have a different mannerism about things, and that's what people don't understand. So at least now with this channel, we can go about that.
That's great. I think that's absolutely fantastic tonight. One of the things I want to let everybody know too. Billy's going to be on next week. He's as Ken said, he's in the process of moving, and his dad was able to come over and help him tonight. So we kind of flipped swats. Ken was going to be on next week. Billy was going to be on this week. So we just kind of like flip the pages here tonight. Want to go around and get everybody's final thoughts about things. Ken, just some final thoughts right now. How things are for you. What's coming up, and not only for your channel but for you and Billy.
So this week I'll be traveling to Philadelphia on Friday. I get up there about like 3:00. We've got some flying we're going to be doing some filming, probably more vlog, a little bit more casual stuff, trying to capture some early fall colors. And then on Saturday, we're going to be in New York City to work on some stuff, and then be back in Florida traveling again. So this worked out well because I would be in Palm Beach the next time we would have, the next episode of Rotor Talk, I would have been in Palm Beach. So can't necessarily guarantee the quality of the internet down there, but yeah. So I'll be going to commercial UAV in October, and then I'll be out at Spin Up. So if anybody's going to be at Spin Up, I'll be there hanging out. I'm not going to be speaking this year, but be just sort of hanging out and enjoying the event, which would be nice. It's a little more relaxing than it was last year.
Cool. Marcus.
Pardon me, I was muted there. I'm sorry, guys.
Was that did Sarah go? Did Sarah come in and hit the mute button?
She actually did walk in, and that's why I muted it.
Dinner's almost ready, Marcus.
Yeah, and that's it. She brought me some fried chicken. So anyway, it's just off to the side here. Anyway, Spin Up. Wow, this will be my first year at Spin Up, and I'm really looking forward to it. And Ken, I'm looking for some tips on. There must be some cool stuff to do in Austin in the meantime too. Never been to Austin either.
Yeah, it's a cool town. I guess their slogan is "Stay Weird." And it's It's or keep Austin weird is what their slogan is, but it's a cool place, man. There's a lot of like interesting places to eat. I mean, honestly, you cannot get a bum stare going to any restaurant in Austin, and the city was pretty easy to fly. We went did some flying in the evening, and the streets were just literally empty. Like there was nobody on the streets on Saturday evening in Austin, because I guess like a lot of everything pushes over towards like there's another district, and it was like it just made for a great time. It just made for a great time. So we'll definitely be doing that.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be super fun.
Ron.
Just that I'm, excited about the Apple announcements today. I'm like Ken, I have the original 10, so I'm due for my update this time. So be getting that. And they announced an iPad, not a Pro, just a regular iPad. And it was like really well priced. So that should be a good item. But what I want to say is, they'll be updating iOS on the phone and the tablet. And I've been running the tablet OS for a while now in beta, and it's really good. I like the fact that you can even added video in the Photos app now, as well as just still images before. So that's going to be a real treat when that comes out.
You know what I liked is that they changed the time for the pre-orders this year. So now it's 8. It's if you're on the East Coast, it's 8 a.m. You don't have to like stay up crazy late or wake up crazy early to order your phone.
Right, and then be stuck with the color you don't want.
Exactly. Which I mean, I've got a backup in mind. I think I'm going to go space gray if the green is out.
Can't go wrong with space gray.
Exactly.
And I'm also excited for Spin Up. I'll be going to Marcus, and I'll be flying in the Zino corporate jet, and looking forward to meeting Ken at Spin Up, and maybe get him to sign my Mavic Pro or something like that. So it'll be a great time. And I'm sorry to hear that Bill can't make it this year. We are looking forward to getting back together with him again, but I guess I'll have to go to Florida again this winter, and Bill and I have to take over Reddington Beach again.
Well, I'm still looking into it, Ron. I still got some options I'm going to explore. So there's still a little bit of hope out there. So we're gonna check into that. First of all, I want to thank Ken for coming in last minute tonight and flipping slots tonight. I know we greatly appreciate it, and I think I speak for not only Ron and Marcus, but for everyone in the chat. It's always great to have you in the house, Ken. And these guys don't know what they're missing, and they'll find out when they get a chance to hang with you at Spin Up and fly with you, because I'll tell you what, that's one of the funnest things that I've done since I've owned a drone is flying with Ken. Anytime I've been around him, and Billy too, when I had the chance to fly with Billy, just these guys are fantastic. So spend some time with them at Spin Up. That's one thing I can most definitely tell you. That is coming up. It is October 19th. It is in Austin, Texas. There'll be a link in the description. Please, every time the calendar goes up, the price goes up for Spin Up. So, it's a great deal. There's going to be some great speakers there. In addition, Barry Markowitz is going to be there. He's a photojournalist from Hawaii and American Samoa, and he's going to be one of the speakers there too. You guys are going to be he's going to be fantastic. You guys will really enjoy him tonight. And I want to thank everybody in the chat for a fantastic chat tonight. You guys were great. Really appreciate that. We have a lot of great things coming up. I got a Saturday show that we're going to start up, and I haven't decided. I think we may hold off on that until October. I'm trying to work out the format of all that, but we're going to have some fun on that. It's going to kind of be a late night kind of a thing. We'll have guests on. It'll be put your feet up on the desk and kick back and relax and have a good time kind of show. So that's what we're planning on doing with all of that. So get your Apple orders in while you can.
Hit the buy button.
Hit that buy button, like as Marcus says, as far as that's concerned. So, well, again, I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight, for the great chat. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. And as always, it's a great day to fly. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Take care.